Welcome to another episode of Wealth Beyond Numbers. I'm your host, Danny Squirrel. We continue the conversation with Eric from EPGD Business Law. Eric, you share so much knowledge. Thank you so much, and tips that are helping our business owners, clients, and other business owners that are watching this on how to best practices, how to take things from the legal aspect. But now I want to know more about you, Eric. And I know you, and you're a good friend. We've known each other for many years, but our audience doesn't know who Eric is. So I would love for you to kind of talk about EPGD Business Law. I know you're one of the founding partners. Why did you start your practice? What kind of practice do you have, and what kind of clients you serve?
I appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. And hopefully, I won't be too long-winded. And so I guess I'll start at the beginning. I got my first job out of law school, and by the way, power of networking. It was a friend from law school. He had started working at a firm, and the firm had signed up a big case, and they decided that they needed to hire some junior associates to help staff the case. And so he calls me up and he says, "Hey, Eric, I can get you an interview. I can't promise you a job. I can get you an interview." So I'll never forget the interview. The guy, his name was Jeff. He asked me two things I'll never forget. He asked me to tell him a joke. And then, I was put on the spot. I thought of a joke that my dad always told. It's a little off color, so I won't tell it here. And then, which by the way, got a big laugh. So I obviously I didn't scare him away. And then he asked me if to imagine I was shrunk down to the size of a nickel and I was in the bottom of a blender and I had 30 seconds before they turned on the blender. What do I do? And my answer was that I would climb up the little measuring lines, on the inside of the blender, and get out. So anyways, I got the job, and what I learned most from that job was how amazing Jeff was at marketing and sales. Jeff was outstanding. Jeff had cracked the code on Google before anyone knew there was a code. He knew what SEO was back in 2005 when nobody else knew what it was. And he knew all the tricks of the trade, and he was bringing in a never-ending stream of potential clients. So flash forward, I then get my second job, and it was night and day the opposite, where this guy serviced 20 families. And he didn't go out and market. He didn't bring in any more clients, but those 20 families were very loyal, and he did really good work for them. And so a little bit later, and I'll get to answering your question, but when I did start my firm, I decided, okay, I'm going to marry those two ideas. I'm going to marry the awesome marketing and sales with awesome service. And if I could do both of those, if I could take everything I learned from Jeff and everything I learned from Mike and put them together, then I could actually grow a pretty nice, successful law firm. And so in actual point of fact, I never, ever dreamed of owning my own business. It was never an inspiration. I didn't come from an entrepreneur family. My dad was a corporate guy. He worked his way up to being in the executive team of an oil company. My mom was a flight attendant at Pan Am back in the day. You remember that airline? Yeah. So, the idea of entrepreneurship and business ownership was not in my DNA. It wasn't something I thought of. And I'll say that I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and Dallas, Texas doesn't really have the immigrant spirit that we certainly have in South Florida or in other cities like New York. And I believe that the immigrant spirit really fosters innovation, and I believe it fosters entrepreneurship. So here in Miami, everybody knows someone that owns a business, right? Or is related to someone that owns a business, or maybe their parents own a business. And it's very common to be surrounded by entrepreneurs and business owners and small businesses, and just it's much more in the blood and in the DNA of Miami. So I followed a girl to Miami. I was working as a law firm, and it was still a bad economy. I don't know if you guys remember what happened in 08, 09. Well, 09, there was just a massive layoffs of lawyers around the country, just massive. And so I was a young attorney, and first of all, I was lucky. I was always employed, but it was very, very hard to find another job because there were no other jobs. So it's kind of like you were stuck wherever you were stuck, and you didn't have the opportunities like, the generations that have come after me, like they've never known a bad economy. Like the worst economy they knew was for about 3 months of COVID, and then everyone got PPP money, and then everything just started going, wild in 2021, right? So the great resignation happened at my firm in August of 2021. Or by the way, if you guys don't remember the great resignation, basically nobody quit their job in 2020. So the normal attrition you would have had 3, 4, 5% of the workforce just naturally turning over, looking for new jobs, moving to new cities, whatever, just normal life. That didn't happen in 2020. So in 2020, nobody quit. 2021, nobody quit. And then at the end, Q3 of 2021, everyone was finally like, oh, I guess the world isn't going to fall apart. Let's actually try something. And so then we had a massive round of quittings in Q3 2021. Now, we weathered that. But back to my point, I couldn't find a job in 2012. I just couldn't. It was like I was stuck where I was stuck. And two things happened. I knew a guy that I personally didn't really respect and didn't think he was very smart and didn't think he was a very good lawyer. And he had his own firm and he was kind of killing it. And I was dating a friend of his wife. And my girlfriend at the time was like, if he can do it, you can do it. And he was one of these guys that I don't understand where they come out of school and open their own practice right away. Where I was a 5th or 6th year lawyer and I still didn't think I knew enough. Right. And that's another thing. I think especially us in the legal profession and any of the professions, we might like hold ourselves back because we were like, we know how much we don't know. So we never think that we know enough.
That's true.
Whereas on the flip side, and I've been saying this for years now, lay people don't know what we don't know. Right. And so if you're good at faking it till you make it. And so there was this guy, and I'll just say it, he was faking it till you make it and he was doing great. And then at the same time, I had a mentor who was 8 years older than me. I'll give him a plug. He's my best friend, Brian Barakat. And Brian and I were having lunch. And I was telling him how unhappy I was at work. And I was telling him how I couldn't find any other job. I literally had a legal recruiter tell me to learn how to suck it up. Like that was his professional advice. I'm like, wait, what? That's your professional advice is to suck it up? And so Brian said, listen, man, why don't you quit and start your own firm? And again, I literally said to him something along the lines of, Brian, I've never wanted to own my own business. I've never thought about it. I've never aspired to do it. I don't know anyone who's done it. I don't have any clients. I don't have many friends. I'm not from here. I didn't grow up here. I don't speak Spanish. And I'm not plugged into the community. I just don't have any of these things. And Brian's like, Eric, these are all excuses that you're telling yourself so you wouldn't even bother trying. He's like, in fact, a later friend, Carlos Garrido, who's a coach of mine for a long time, he said, Eric, that's all head trash. And you need to get that head trash out of your head. And so I said, okay, Brian, what am I going to do? And he goes, listen, I'm going to teach you. You're going to join this group called BNI. I'm like, what's BNI? You're going to join the Coral Gables Chamber of Commerce, and you're going to join the Rotary Club, and you're going to do whatever it takes to get on the board, which basically means perfect attendance, showing up early, staying late, going above and beyond, really buying into what they believe in. And before you know it, you'll be getting referrals and you'll be building your business. And that was in February of 2013. And I followed his advice. And it's interesting. When I started my law firm, I wasn't inventing anything new. I was literally just going to offer the same services that I was offering at the firm I was working at before. I already had my law license. I already had my bar degree. Our bar license. Anyways, I'd already done everything you need to do, and I owned an old laptop and I had a cell phone, and basically it's not hard to go on GoDaddy.com and create a website.
That's right.
And go on Vistaprint and make business cards. And more to the next step, Brian rented me an office, gave me 3 months rent free, and then It was $500 a month after that. And then we had compatible businesses in the sense that we don't overlap. So my first client was a referral from Brian.
Nice.
And then I would sit there and I would wait for him to finish his last appointment around 5:30 every day. And I would sit outside his door and I'd be like, hey, Brian, do you have a minute? Hey, Brian, do you have a minute? And I'd go in there, I'd bring him a bottle of scotch, we'd play backgammon, and I'd say, okay, so how do I fill in the blank? How do I hire my first employee? How do I update my client services agreement? How do I start having policies and procedure? How do I use my trust account? Who do you know that's a banker that can help me open my first bank account, right? And it was all these things, which, by the way, is a little plug. BNI stands for Business Network International. It's actually where Dennis and I met. And it's where I met my wife. She was my first one-to-one. And the cool thing about it, in addition to all the business I've received, is the access to the network of professionals, right? So not just for me, right? So I got my insurance, I got my health insurance, I got my life insurance, I got my business banker, I got my accountant, I got my bookkeeper, I got all these resources in the chapter, but then I can use that to become a resource for my clients.
That's right.
And which has really been powerful. So back in 2013, I couldn't find a job. And Brian has since admitted to me, he's like, Eric, after we had that conversation, I was really nervous because if you had failed, I figured you'd blame me. Yeah. And there's no guarantees. And in fact, a number of people who work for my law firm today have been guys that have gone out on their own, opened their own practice, been fighting the good fight, and then finally decided to give up and decided to come in to a system where they can get a steady paycheck every 2 weeks and become a W-2 person.
I was in preparing for our podcast, Eric. Interesting you mentioned that 22% of new business fail in South Florida. There's statistics from the U.S. labor in the first year.
Wow.
And then 50% of businesses fail after 5 years.
Yeah.
And the percentage increases after 10 years, 65%. So you've been around the block.
13 years.
Yeah, 13 years.
Almost.
So that means that you pass those hurdles, you grow in your practice from helping clients on simple matters to now somewhat more complex. So what is your typical client that you look for, that you now like to serve?
Sure. A lot of our branding and a lot of our focus over the years was on entrepreneurs. And the transition is I've started working with enterprise clients. And let me kind of explain the difference. When you work with an owner-operated business, or you work with an entrepreneur, or you work with a business owner, at the end of the day, they're writing the check for your services out of their own money, right? It's their money. Right? It might be from the company, but it's their money, right? And they know that $5,000 to you is $5,000 they're not going to have for Disneyland or for school tuition or for whatever it is that they want to spend their money on. With an enterprise business, it's not their money. It's usually somebody else's money. I'll give you an example. We are now doing a lot of work for the bank that's in the building that we're in. The guy that writes our check is an employee of that company. And so the mindset is, my objective is to make him look good to his boss. That's my goal, is to make sure he keeps looking good to his boss. As long as he looks good to his boss will be approving all the checks that he's writing to pay my fees. Which is a very slightly different mindset than when you're working with the owner-operated entrepreneur, where it really is their money. And so I'm not saying that we're not still servicing the entrepreneurs, and we certainly are. What I've been saying recently is I'm not looking to be your first lawyer. I used to, and I still will be. And listen, if you want to start your business and give me a call and we're going to help you get everything off on the right foot, absolutely. But where I really see the growth opportunity now is I want to be the lawyer that replaces your other lawyer. And there's statistics on this. Over 90% of the complaints to the Florida bar, which are by the public about lawyers, is two things: communication and pricing. That's it. They don't talk about missing deadlines. They don't talk about they're not smart. They don't talk about they don't know what they're doing. They're not the best lawyer. That's not what they complain about. They complain about responsiveness to phone calls and emails, and sticking to your word when you say a certain thing is going to be a certain price, and actually delivering on that certain thing at that certain price. And so I've had the mindset from the beginning that if I can fix those two problems, right? And it sounds so simple, but great story. A guy finds me on the internet, which, by the way, that's another shift in my business. I used to be all word of mouth, and I looked at my digital presence as just, like, for example, my website. It was just something that you could look up once you'd been introduced to me. So, like, you introduced me to your client, and then your client goes and looks at my Google reviews, or your client goes and looks at my my website or my blogs or whatever. And then they're like, oh, I looked you up online, or I saw your YouTube video, And so all of that stuff was just meant to, like, solidify that I was a real person. Now I'm actually getting calls out of the blue where people are like, hey, I found you on the internet. So that's been a big shift since COVID. So this guy finds me on the internet, and he's out of Fort Lauderdale, and I'm asking him questions, and he's got a $20 million a year digital marketing business. doing mostly digital ads and advertising and social media advertising for other companies. But 20 million is not insignificant. That's a nice sized business.
It is.
So I said, his name was Mike. I said, Mike, I'm confused. You didn't get to 20 million a year without having a lawyer along the way. Do you have a lawyer? He goes, oh yeah, I have a lawyer. I'm like, well, then why are we talking? He goes, oh, because I'm frustrated with my lawyer. And I said, can I guess why? He goes, sure, have at it. And I said, I'm willing to bet that he doesn't return your phone calls fast enough. He goes, how did you know? I'm like, because that's the only complaint people ever have, right? So I know I'm not the smartest. I know I didn't go to the best law school. I didn't have the highest GPA, but I can promise you this. I have a 0 email inbox. I have received over 500,000 emails since I started my firm. It's all there since the beginning. I've been using Gmail from day one. I have a 0 email inbox. And Dennis, you and I have been sitting here for an hour and 30 minutes. I probably have 27 emails in that inbox, and that's it. Because that's probably what came in since you and I sat down. And so I'm looking to meet the guy that's frustrated with his lawyer. Or the girl. Now, my ideal client, I've been saying this for years, and I do this exercise a lot, especially something that you asked me about earlier when we were off camera, was what inspires me, what motivates me. And I think probably what motivates me the most is mentoring. So when I'm mentoring people, I say, listen, you need to be able to answer who's your ideal client. And my ideal client, the way I do it is I just describe my favorite client ever. So can I tell you about my ideal client?
Yeah, please.
My ideal client's from Barranquilla. She's Colombian, but she lives in Miami. She's married. She has a business partner. She's been in business 7 years. They have employees. They have a warehouse in Doral, a retail place in Brickell, and they do a lot of online business, and they're importing bathing suits from Medellin. It's my ideal client. She's married. She's got a family. She's going to need estate planning. She's got a business partner. They're going to need partnership agreements. She's got employees. They're going to need employment agreements. She's got 2 locations. They're going to need leases. She's got online business. She's going to need terms and conditions, right? She's got manufacturing agreements and import-export. So there's just lots of cool layers and fun things that I can help her with.
And by you bringing all that in-house also, if I can say this, you bring a lot of peace of mind. You bring a lot of peace of mind to the client, knowing that if she has a problem in any area of her business or her life, she can rely on you.
Let me ask you something, Dennis. Isn't that at the end of the day what we're really selling?
That is exactly what we do.
Because listen, I'm not going to pick on your industry, but I could just get an E-Trade account, and why do I need a financial advisor, right? Mm-hmm. And somebody could just go to LegalZoom. Why do they need a lawyer? And they could go to ChatGPT and be like, hey, write me a contract. The reason why they need your expertise and my expertise is I have wisdom. I have experience. I know what mistakes people make, and I know how to try to help them avoid those mistakes.
Yeah. Also, I think you can add to like, if I may, I can, from knowing you also know best practices. You know what path not to lead a client, or you can tell a client, I've seen this before, when you go this path and it doesn't look pretty and it adds to legal cost and an expense that you might have gone if you would have gone in this direction. Like you mentioned, having a contract, having a trademark, having things in writing, having your employees sign. These are all things that you share that business owners are not really focused on, because they're focused on just growing the business, increasing their revenue, increasing the EBITDA.
Can I tell you the most frustrating part of my existence?
Please.
So I've grown a firm to about 30 lawyers. Mm-hmm. I have 6 corporate attorneys working with business owners, writing their contracts, negotiating, doing deals, mergers and acquisitions, trademarks, all the constructive stuff. I call it happy law. The happy law, the fun stuff. Hey, let's build this business. Let's help you protect. Let's help you grow. Let's help you have peace of mind and sleep well at night, right? You spend a little bit of money, then tonight you can hold your sweetheart and you can go to sleep and know that you're at least a little bit more protected, okay? I have 17 litigators.
Wow.
You want to know why that is? Because a lot of people don't ask for good advice. They don't go and ask someone to review the contract before they do the deal. One of the most frustrating stories, and this is somebody that you and I both know, they were my client. Like, they had used my services many times. They did not use my services this particular time. And they call me when they've already lost $500,000 in an investment deal gone sideways. Wow. And I ask them, I'm like, all right, well, did you sign a contract? They go, yes. It was 2 pages.
Wow.
It was 2 pages. It didn't even have a dispute resolution language. It didn't have, and just for anyone listening, just to think about contracts, the way you need to look at a contract is not, yay, we're doing a deal, everyone's going to make money. That's not why you have contracts. It's what happens if everything goes wrong. What position will I be in, and how can I potentially solve the problem or protect myself? And it's really hard. It's counterintuitive. You have to literally put yourself in the mindset before you do the deal of this deal's going to go bad, which is counterintuitive, and most people can't do it. Most people, you don't get married planning for the divorce. And it's, and unfortunately you should. You just say, listen, I hope for the best. I hope we get married and we're married forever and we love each other forever and happily ever after. But if everything goes sideways, what happens next? And that's a very counterintuitive mindset that most business owners don't have. And so my 6 guys toiling away writing contracts, there's 3 times as many people dealing with the breach of contracts. And that's human nature. I don't know if it's South Florida. I don't know if it's because we have a lot of people from different cultures that don't have the same relationship with laws and with agreements. I don't know what it is, but I can tell you that I call that the dark side, and it makes me so sad because I know that all of those people that end up in litigation and end up in the dark side could have used our services on the happy side and stayed out of that trouble.
And saved money.
And saved a ton of money.
Saved a ton of money. There's so many questions, and I know we're pressed with time, but what, at the end of the day, what helps you at the end of the day? What inspires you? Why did you? I guess I'm just gonna ask you, where do you see your practice in the next 5 years for EPGD? What do you want to do?
Well, I have a goal, 50 by 50. Okay. I want to have 50 attorneys by the time I turn 50.
Okay.
We're on track. I think I'll probably exceed that goal. And we just did a big expansion of our office. We're going to do a ribbon cutting. Hopefully this podcast is done before that and you guys can all come. But we're going to, we have the room to grow now. The physical limitations that we've had for the last couple of years are finally gone. So God willing, I run out of space again. But not for a little while.
Are there any other practice of areas that you want to expand to, or you're just...
No, but I'll tell you an interesting thing we talked about a little bit earlier, but I'll answer more directly. What I see the legal industry going, I know that AI is coming, and I know that ChatGPT and all of its different variations are coming. And what I actually see is transactional law is going to go up market, meaning the easy stuff, make me an operating agreement, that's going to go away. And I already see it. But the hard stuff, like help me create a franchise, help me do a private placement memorandum, help me raise money, create a fund, help me do more sophisticated or more complicated stuff, I think that's going to continue to grow. And unless human nature changes, I think litigation is continue to grow.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Thank you so much, Eric. This has been so phenomenally just enlightening. You taught us about things that business owners should really know. Our last episode is about things that drive you crazy in your practice, and that's how we're going to close it. So stick around, please. This concludes another episode of Wealth Beyond Numbers. I hope you enjoyed getting to know Eric and more about his firm and how he's grown his practice from just one-man show to now over 30 lawyers. And it's so impressive to see his growth and how he's making a difference in the community. I hope, so we like to say at Coral Wealth Management, retirement and financial confidence starts here. Thank you.